Do you have a lot of barriers when it comes to your retirement plan? Well, it's time to break through. Welcome to the show, everyone. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joey Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner, president of Peer Financial Advisors. Of course, I'm with the big man. He's going to bust through some boulders. We're going to break through your retirement barriers today. That's today's Financial Focus. All right, what are we talking about in regards to barriers? Here's the top three, folks. 77% of people do not have a formal written plan. It doesn't have to be a 500-page document, but you have to write it down. Number two, we're overspending. When aren't we? And then you have a retirement savings strategy. Here are the barriers. Let's break through. Let's bring in the big man.
Getting through those retirement barriers, okay. Planning, spending, saving. We're going to figure out how to do better on each of these. Joe, it's a little bit like trying to lose weight. We know what to do. Eat less, eat healthy, exercise more.
Yep.
But there's books and books and books, and this is kind of the same thing. There's a lot, it's simple, but there's a lot to it.
Right, it's simple, but it's not easy to execute.
Correct.
Yeah, let's get into it. Planning. 76% of people feel overwhelmed. It's like, man, there's just too much here. I don't know where to start. Well, let's get you started, Big Al.
All right, thinking about written plans, only 21% of you have a written plan, 28% of you have no plan, and 51%, I kind of have something in my head. Joe, we need to do a little bit better.
Yeah, you have to write it down. And what does that actually mean? What do you need to be doing here? All right, start planning. Net worth, what is that? That's your assets, that's your liabilities. Take your assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth. Start there. Don't care what the number is, start there. Understand what you have so that you can build and grow it. Number two, cash flow. What does that mean? Well, that's income coming in, expenses going out. What are you making on a monthly basis? What are you spending? Are you spending more than what you're making? Well, then you have some work to do. Is there some excess cash flow? Well, then you can start putting that to work. Start a target savings plan. If it's $50 a month or $5,000 a month, you need to start paying yourself first and then looking at the end goal. What are you trying to accomplish and bring everything back to today?
There's a lot of negative thinking where people just don't get started. They procrastinate. That's the number one problem. They avoid it. They feel overwhelmed. Joe, what are the steps?
You know, it's looking at, man, there's always tomorrow to get started, but you can't, right? It's like you're in your 20s. Next thing you know, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and wow, what happened? I'm in my 60s and retirement is knocking down the door. Start now with your automatic payments. Get those dollars going. If it's a 401k or if it's just a savings account, take it from your paycheck and put it somewhere. Don't touch it. Pay yourself first. The future you, right? Think about what you are going to look like and feel like 20 years from now when you're broke. You probably don't want that feeling. Start thinking about the future you. Don't let that person be neglected. And just stay educated. Stay on top of things. You don't need a PhD in this. Just understanding what you need to do, you'll make it.
Just get started. I mean, that's probably one of the main things. Now here's another one, is the market. So a lot of us don't really understand how the market works. It tends to go up more than down, but it does go down. And in fact, if you look at a 5-year period, 1 or 2 times on average, the market will go down at least 15%. This is not something you freak out about. You're aware of it, but you want to invest accordingly, Joe.
Biggest problem we have is that we never get started because we're afraid of the markets. Well, it's going to go down. Oh, it's really high, or it's at its low. We have a presidential election. Oh, what's going to happen to taxes? Oh, we're coming into the new year. There's always excuses. What's the solution? Is hold a lot of different things. Have a little bit of cash. Have a little bit of stocks. Maybe a little bit of bonds and alternatives. But the percentage of what you hold here is really going to determine on your goals. What are you trying to accomplish with the money that you have? If you have a short-term goal that's next year, that's cash. If it's retirement for the next 30 years, well, that's probably stocks and bonds and alternatives. But you have to get started. Don't let fear kind of run your overall financial plan. Have the appropriate asset allocation, stay invested, and then stay educated again.
Yeah, and it's all about diversification. You've heard that term before. But stocks, for example, there's foreign stocks, domestic stocks, large and small companies, value and growth, and they all tend to go up and down at slightly different times. So make sure you're diversified. It keeps your portfolio less volatile.
And then as we were talking about the lack of savings that you have, right? So you want to make sure that you have a nest egg here for emergencies, opportunities. You know, is it 1 month salary? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? It really depends on the overall income that you have and your expenses, but you want to make sure that you have that nest egg. Most people don't have it, Al.
Well, they don't. And so number one thing to do is to start an emergency fund. That's the most important thing by far. Make sure you have 3 to 6 months saved, so if something happens to your car or whatever, medical, you've got money to pay for it without having to tap your credit card. Now, just so you know, if worse comes to worse, you can borrow against your 401k. We don't recommend it except in extreme emergencies, but you can borrow up to 50% of your balance, up to $50,000.
Looking at getting advice. Most people really don't even sign up for any type of advice, and maybe it's just kind of the do-it-yourself type of program that you have through your 401k plan. 53% Americans do not sign up for any more than just a basic self-help group.
Yeah, and there's plenty to look at, right? There's do-it-yourself platforms on custodians. Gosh, there's so many apps and tools and things to help you invest. Just take a look at them. Of course, there's also advisors, financial advisors, but if you go to an advisor, make sure that they do financial planning as well as investments, not just one or the other.
You know, if you want more help, you know where to go. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com. We have our financial blueprint. So if you're looking at some of these roadblocks and how to break through, go to our financial blueprint, get your roadmap set. Yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on that special offer. It's a financial blueprint. It's your personalized blueprint that you're going to fill out your own overall situation right there. It's your own financial blueprint that you can do laying in bed. I don't care where you can do it, but you can get the answers that you've been looking for. Hey, when we get back, we're going to talk about overspending. How do we curb that? Stick around and find out. Hey, we're breaking through some of these retirement barriers today. To help you even further, go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on our special offer. It's our retirement blueprint. Do you have a roadmap for retirement? Do you know the pluses and minuses of your overall situation? Are you on track, not on track? What are some situations and strategies that you should be utilizing? Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on that financial blueprint. Get yourself informed today. Let's see how you did on that true-false question. If you failed this thing, you got to get that financial blueprint.
80% of Americans say they have a budget. True or false? Well, this survey says true. 80% of you have a budget, although I find that a little hard to believe, but let's go with that. More importantly, though, from this survey, 80% of you are not following the budget that you've set up. So it's kind of same. If you have a budget, you need to follow it.
You know, Al, you know how many times I've done this? It's like you get excited, you go to the app store, you know, there was like mint.com.
Yeah, right.
And then there's Rocket Money. And so you start putting all your stuff in, and then you're like, okay, we're really going to buckle this thing down. And then after like 2 months, you're like, oh my God, we're spending way too much. I don't even want to look at this anymore. All right? Don't be like everyone else. 80% of us are doing this. Okay, so it's very normal. But you got to reel it back in. You have to understand what you are spending so that you can have a good retirement. Credit cards, Big Al.
Yeah, credit cards. So the average debt right now, at least 2023, $6,000 per person in the United States. And in many cases, it's a lot more. If you find yourself with a lot of debt, over $10,000, and you're having trouble making those payments, a couple things you can do. The easiest one is to try to get another credit card with a 0 interest rate. Maybe it'll have free interest, 0 interest for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, right? But if that doesn't work, there are plans where you can consolidate your debt with a debt consolidation loan, maybe get a home equity loan, or in some cases, debt relief with credit card companies. If you're having major problems, they will work with you.
You know, if you have multiple cards, here's a couple of different tips here too. There's like this snowball effect. So sometimes the experts will say, well, look at the one with the highest rate, right? So if you have a card with 22% and then 12%, 6% and 0%, we'll pay the one that's, you know, the highest interest rate. Intuitively, that makes a lot of sense. Another way to think about it too is then you can match up your credit cards or your debt with the lowest debt to the highest. And then, so with the lowest debt, you want to pay that one off and then hit another one and hit. So there's like this snowball effect that people get a little bit more motivated when they can start checking these boxes to get the debt off their balance sheet. So a couple of other tips there, if you do have some debt, on how to take control of it and get rid of it. Childcare, Big Al. I'm in this land of fun stuff.
27% of your income spent on childcare. That's a lot, Jeff.
That is a lot. I'm telling you, kids aren't cheap.
Anyway, what can we do about it? So a couple things. You can set up a FSA plan at your employer if you have it. If the employer has it, that could be up to $5,000 per year saving into that plan to use for childcare. That's a tax-free benefit to you, right? Or potentially you can get that childcare credit of up to $1,050 per dependent, up to 2 dependents, a couple $1,000s. So make sure you're taking advantage of these benefits.
Yeah, flex spending account. So just understand, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So these are a little bit different than the popular HSA health savings account. These flex accounts are great though. You get a tax deduction going in that you can use, that gross tax deferred that you can use for pre-tax healthcare or childcare costs. So really good benefits for those. Healthcare costs is coming right down the pike for you, brother.
Healthcare.
Speaking of, right? I got this. Al, you got this.
I do, and it's only going up, Joe, as I get older. Anyway, so but what can I do? What can you do? You can set up a health savings account, right? If you have a high deductible health savings plan, so that allows you to put in 2024. $4,150 into the plan, $8,300 if you're a family, and you can put in an extra $1,000 if you're 50 and older.
Okay, student debt. A lot of us still have some student loans to pay off. The average federal student loan debt is almost $40,000.
Wow.
40 grand. So, you know, we're still trying to chip away at some of that student loan debt. You know, what can you do, Big Al? There's some things that we can do.
Well, if you find yourself where you just really can't afford the payments, there's tuition assistance, potentially. It's called income-driven repayment plan. You can go to studentaid.gov and apply for this, and then this will allow your payment to be in line with what your discretionary income is. In other words, it could be quite a bit lower than what you're currently paying. And then also, in some cases, you may have a benefit at your job where your employer will pay up to $5,250 as tax-free, Joe.
You know, as we're accumulating wealth, there's all these different barriers that come into play, right? You have, you know, college debt for your kids. You have health care, you know, as you get a little bit older, or maybe you have credit card debt that you're chipping away at. You still have a mortgage. You know, once you get control of that and then you approach retirement, now you have all sorts of other fun stuff to consider, right? We're living a lot longer. That's really good news, but it's also the bad news is that your money has to continue to last. So if you don't get a hold of your spending, right, you're going to need those dollars for a lot more years. Looking at females' life expectancy in 1940 was 78. In 2050, it expected to be 87. 2050 for a male, 85. That's getting pretty old.
That's that's my target.
Yeah.
Maybe 90.
95.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Well, that green juice you're drinking, you make it 105.
It's all good. 10,000 steps a day. But here's the problem: is about half of you plan to work past 65, but it's not always available. In fact, probably at least half of you retire earlier than you want to because of health, because of job loss, because of caregiving. Currently, only 1 in 5 65 plus are working. Although, Joe, I looked at that survey. It's a little misleading. That includes my mom, too, who's 91. And she hasn't worked for 25 years, so just take that grain of salt.
You know, it's that. But you're right though, because I think a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm going to continue to work. I'll work until I drop, or whatever those stupid sayings are. But Al hit it on the head. It's that sometimes we're forced into early retirement, even though we want to work a little bit longer to save and protect that nest egg. Unforeseen things happen. So just being prepared, because we are living longer. And then finally, Al,
spending in retirement, spending a lot, volatility.
Hey, you got to buy the RV. We got to go on vacations. I want that timeshare in Dominican.
We've been waiting and we want to do these things. But here's the problem. If you overspend too much, then later on it could be a problem. Like, here's just a little quick example. So you're spending $60,000 a year and you project it out at 6% rate of return, 3% inflation. That'll last to age 85. But if you could just trim that back 10% to 54 grand a year, you get an extra 5 years to be able to not outlive your money.
Go to yourmoneywealth.com, get that help that you need. Get your financial blueprint. It's going to give you 3 scenarios. Are you doing things excellent? Are you fair? Or are you good? So it'll give you that range so that you can focus on the things that you need to focus on. It's very specific to your situation. Go to yourmoneywealth.com. Click on that special offer. It's our financial blueprint. You're going to love it. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the big one, savings. Are you saving enough, and where should you be saving, and where to start and how to do it. Hey, welcome back, folks. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. We're talking breaking through your retirement barriers. It's that overspending, it's the planning, and then now we're going to get into savings. Are you doing the appropriate thing when it comes to savings? How much should you save? Where should you save it? If you want to get very specific help, and if you want to do it yourself, go to yourmoneywealth.com, get our financial blueprint. It's a phenomenal tool. It's quick and easy. It's going to give you the scenarios that you need to see if you're on track, not on track, or are you in the middle of the road, to help you focus on the things that you need to do. Yourmoneywealth.com, click on that special offer. But now, let's see how you did on the true false.
20% of Americans age 50 plus have no retirement savings. That's actually true. 1 in 5 people over age 50 have no retirement savings at all. We learned at the beginning of the show about half of you have no retirement savings, but that includes all ages. At least by the time you're 50, you should at least have some retirement savings, and Joe, 1 in 5 don't.
Well, that's okay. You got to get to work, right? You got to start plugging away at some point. We're living a lot longer, so that's the good news. So if I'm 50 years old and I don't have any savings, well, I can work until I'm probably 70, and so I have 20-year runway, and then have another 15, 20 years in retirement. Let's get started here. Savings plan, Big Al.
Yeah, so about 69 million workers have no savings plan at all at work. There's no 401k, nothing like that. So what can you do? Well, certainly you can set up an IRA. That's currently $7,000 per person. If you're over 50, you can add another extra $1,000. Of course, you can always set up a brokerage account. You can save outside of retirement. And Joe, if you're self-employed, you got a solo K and other plans.
I mean, these are crazy numbers. 56% of workers do not have a 401k plan. So if you take 2 individuals and you put them in the same occupation with the same income, one has a 401k through their employer, one does not. You fast forward 20 years, if they stay in that employer, who's going to have more money?
Yeah, the one with the 401k.
The one with the 401k, because they can just check a box and put it into the plan. It's funny, brokerage accounts should not be scary. A lot of you do not have any money into a brokerage account. All your money's in a retirement account. If you do not have a retirement account, you can open up a brokerage account at any of discount broker, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, whatever. Put a couple $100 a month into this. So just because you don't have a retirement plan through your employer, boom, there's all sorts of different scenarios that they can at least start and jumpstart that savings.
Yeah, Joe, and the other thing is about 78% of people out there are living paycheck to paycheck. So what should we do about that?
Well, welcome to the club, right? It's like the more money that you make, guess what? The more money we spend. So we got to figure this out. You want to get that budget app? Yeah, I've had 100 of these apps. And I'm like, well, that one's not good enough, so I'm going to keep doing it. At least I'm trying, right? Budgeting, no one likes to do it. It's not fun. And then you realize how much money that you spend, and then you get depressed. You got to look at needs and wants, Al.
You do.
But everything that I want, it turns into I need it.
It's a need.
I gotta have it. I gotta have it. Gotta start small though, right? You just take one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant, right, or something like that?
Yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
You know what? I think that's such a good point because, I mean, a lot of times people end up behind in terms of their retirement savings. You're not alone, but you just start. You just start maybe 1% of your income, and each year you increase it a little bit more. Every time you get a bonus, you increase it a little bit more, right? And or raise. Just keep every year adding a little bit more, and it accumulates.
You know, when we're talking about people over 50 that have very little retirement savings, well, 50% of women, 47% of men are sitting in that camp, so almost dead even here. What has happened over the years is that there's these catch-up contributions. Once you reach your 50s, it's like you're in your peak earning years. And so that you're making a little bit more money. Maybe the kids are out of school. Maybe all of these larger expenses are going down. So it gives you the opportunity to put a little bit more dollars into your overall retirement accounts. So these catch-up contributions are huge for individuals.
They really are. So you think about a 401k at $23,000 is what you can put into it. But if you're 50 and older, you can add another $7,500. So don't forget about that. IRA, $7,000, you can add an extra $1,000. And then we got an even bigger catch-up, Joe, starting in 2025 for 3 years, $10,000.
That's a huge number. I like how he said when you're, in your 50s, your kids are out of school. In my case,
did that happen for you?
But I'm 70s. My 3-year-old.
You know what?
My 3-year-old's finally going to get out of school.
We'll have to put in a new ketchup for you. It's in your 70s.
I'm going to need a giant ketchup. Oh, there's more savings. There's more things that you can potentially do, right? So if we exhausted everything, it's like, just simple things. If you get a bonus through your employer, just try to bank that bonus, right? Or half of it, or a quarter of it. I've heard this, like a third to yourself, a third to fund, a third to debt. Rent a room. This is Al's favorite. He's got a room.
I can't wait. Or side hustle. Joe, you and I need to figure out some kind of side hustle when we're
when you're 68 years old, we're gonna start doing some side hustles. But honestly, there's some different things that people are doing. They're starting businesses at all sorts of different ages. So there's a lot of fun things that you could potentially do to make a little bit of income. Some not so fun, but you got to start somewhere. You got to put a plan in place, and depending on where you're sitting here, there's other opportunities. All right, so we broke through those barriers. We talked about planning. We talked about budgeting. We talked about savings. That's what you need to do. Start with a plan, Big Al.
What you do, that's always first. Make sure you budget, make sure you save, make sure you figure out what your spending is. It's not that complicated, but Joe, as you said right at the start, hard to execute, but not that complicated.
We're here to help. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on that special offer this week. It's our financial blueprint. See what you need to be focusing in on. Are you on track, or are you not on track, or are you close? Yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on that special offer. It's our financial blueprint. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully you had as much fun as Big Al and I did. Want to thank Aaron for putting together an awesome show. We'll see you next time, folks.